So this is the Olympus OM-2N from 1979. I bought this off of eBay last week and I love it. It's a brilliant little camera, and when it comes to film cameras, there's no disadvantage to the size of the camera really as compared to larger bodies. It's not like the sensor size is different, the film is still the same. And for a small travel camera, there's a lot to be said for this camera. It has even got aperture priority mode, which is quite remarkable. And it's a very lovely little thing. It's very nicely made. The lens is fantastic, and I kind of fancied getting back into film photography anyway. Although the lens is in perfect condition because it's had a filter from new, the body itself does need a few perishable parts replacing, namely the light seals and the pads that the mirror hits as you fire the shutter. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to precariously rig up the Nikon Z9 above my desk, and I'm going to try and replace them and hopefully not break it. Right, this might be somewhat of a challenging video just on account of my camera is actually strapped to the desk, and if I lean on the desk it's going to shake. But essentially this is the OM-2N. I need to replace a variety of old foam sections on this camera. So removing the lens, there are, in fact, see if I can tilt it in the right location, where the mirror pops up when you press the shutter, there are some foam pads here to stop it from making too much noise. Those have degraded, and in fact the mirror has gotten stuck a couple of times. Those are very small and quite awkward to see. I'll see if I can crop it in, but they are effectively on the edges here. The rest of it, and the main part to do, is here on the back. So pop the door off. The door itself only has one section that needs replacing, which is here, and as you can see, the foam has degraded entirely over the past 40 or so years. On the camera body itself, you can see again, it's gone there. These seals along the edges, and a small one down that section as well. So that's my task. I bought a laser cut set of foam on eBay. Probably not going to want to focus on this because it's black. It's going to do, let's swap it to white. So I've got 3 sets of it technically. These are slightly different. They're for a variety of older Olympus cameras, but as most of the cameras are extremely similar in terms of size and shape, it should work. But the first job, which I'm going to start with now, is to remove the old foam. Most other videos that I've seen are using isopropyl alcohol to do this job, which is a very reasonable choice, especially if you're going to be coming in contact with any circuit boards. I'm going to be using this weird stuff called Goo Gone because it is phenomenal at removing sticky residues, even better, in my opinion, than isopropyl alcohol. But I do have to be careful, as underneath the eyepiece here, and you almost certainly won't be able to see these, there are a couple of vent holes for the air being pushed and pulled through zoom lenses, or in fact even with the focus mechanisms, and I need to be careful not to get any liquid in there. It's less of a problem if you use isopropyl alcohol because it will not, in theory, cause any damage to your circuit boards. It's used for cleaning circuit boards, in fact.
Okay, I found this on the web for cause any damage to your circuit board is cleaning.
And Siri, who never understands me at the best of times, is now just listening in irritatingly on my iPad. Bugger off. Right, I'm going to start with the door just to check that this works okay. So sometimes with this Goo Gone stuff, You want to leave it for a little bit to soak in. Not actually sure what it says on the back. For extra gooey messes, let's sit 5 to 10 minutes. I'm going to start trying to scrape straight away, and for this I'm going to try just the end of a cable tie. I wanted a bit of a soft plastic. That might be too soft. Yes, I think I will apply a bit more and we will leave that for 5 to 10 minutes because it appears to be an extra gooey mess, according to the instructions. While we're at it, I'm going to apply it a bit to one of the less risky parts of the camera body as well, which is this bit. This bit actually still has a large amount of foam left over, despite the fact that the foam has disintegrated. So it's definitely going to need to soak in for a bit. Just going to wipe away any excess that goes on the rubber grips. And while this is soaking, I'm going to go and find a better scraping tool. Difficulty here is finding something that is strong enough to scrape sticky stuff from metal without damaging the metal itself. Okay, I'm back and I've brought a couple of tools that I actually use for accordion tuning. These are made from a very soft brass plate and in theory should be pretty good at scraping stuff off. There we go. Right, let's remove some of this. Wondering how or where I got this tool from. I made this myself from a very simple bit of sheet brass. It may not come as a huge surprise that off-the-shelf accordion tuning tools are somewhat rare, or at least they are here in the UK. It's a somewhat messy process. As you can see, underneath the foam pad here is in fact part of the attachment point for the door. So that's just something to keep in mind when reapplying the pad. Okay, gone through most of that, so I'm just going to apply a little bit more and then wipe off this area. This is just so that we end up with good adhesion for the new bit of foam. There we go. It's looking, there we go. It's looking much cleaner along here now, where one of the pads will be going. The next and in theory trickiest section is removing what is stuck in there, and I do have this thin tool which will hopefully be of use, but we'll find out, I suppose. Let's just clear off some of the mess so far. to check fit for a second so that I know where the contact points are. So indeed there isn't a pad necessary on this bit, it's just on that bit. That must have been where it degraded at the time, I suspect. So I'm going to have a little scrape on this bit over here now. I don't think there is much there at all. No. Before I continue, I will check whether there was ever a light seal on the OM-2N down there. It looks like there is, or was, but I might be mistaken. So, in the meantime, let's get on with removing these other seals. Right. It's time to try and fish out what remains of the old foam. Probably just getting a very good close-up of my hairline at this point, but there's not much I can do about it. I don't want to chuck loads of the old foam into the internal workings of the camera because it's very gooey. So where possible, I want to just extract that. So in theory, because these tools are made of brass, they shouldn't scratch.
Okay, I found this on the web for...
There are some cameras from this era that never have this problem. They are designed in such a way that you don't need foam or rubber light seals. Obviously that's not the case with this one. This is pretty grotty. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I would like to make as neat a job of it as possible so that I don't have to redo it. For anyone who, for whatever reason, also needs to make their own accordion tuning tools, all you need in order to do this is to get a thin brass sheet. I don't know how thick this is. It's very, very thin. Yes, anyone who's interested, this is very, very thin brass, and all you need are a pair of tin snips used for cutting soft sheet metal. Okay. I think that's the vast majority of that out. Okay. It's looking vaguely clean on this side. So this is the completed side. This one's the one that's still got all the leftover foam in it. On to the last section. And this is where I've got to be careful with the amount of liquid because of those breathing holes that I mentioned before. Also, something else to note on the top is this small metal lever just here, and that is what resets the frame count. So it's wound on. I won't work with the door off, will it? That resets it back to the start again. There seems to be a slightly lower section in that area, which does worry me a little bit. I'm wondering if it goes in towards the prism area. So hopefully I haven't introduced any stuff into the prism. It's currently still clear in the viewfinder, which is a good sign. So as far as I can tell, the original foam seal doesn't go behind this lever. They just sort of leave the lever alone, which is kind of interesting. You'd have thought that perhaps some light might escape around it, but seemingly it doesn't matter. You might be wondering what the point of this is if I wasn't actually experiencing any light leaks, and it's rather the fact that it could experience light leaks if pressure is applied in the wrong place, or if it degrades even further. This is no longer foam, this is just gooey mess, and it's, I mean, nice that it's still been an effective light seal, but it's not the best. Okay, it's not perfect, but it is good enough for now. We will move on to replacing these rear seals. I'm going to leave the mirror ones until a little bit later. After looking at pictures, it appears I don't actually need to stick anything on here, which is annoying because I've taken some of the paint off, but I'll just repaint it at some point. So, on the OM-2N, on the back part, or for the door, on the edge, only this one is required. So, it took me a while, but I did eventually find some of my tweezers I use for soldering, and a couple of other tools that might end up being useful. Also going to use a small bowl of water to wet the adhesive, which will mean that I can reposition it slightly if needed. Just going to check the fit. Okay. That's pretty good. So it appears that the old seal went right up to the rubber edge, so I'm going to do the same with this one. I've never been the most dexterous person. If you can hear a weird noise in the background, it's because my cat is licking her ass. Okay. This is where tweezers come in handy. I sure do love capturing loads of 8K footage of me failing to peel off a small bit of adhesive. Right, okay. So I'm just going to, oh, that is very sticky. Right, I'm going to just lightly damp that, I think. Might be a little too damp, but we'll find out. Yes, I highly recommend damping it beforehand. It certainly makes it much easier to reposition it. Yeah, that's all right. Hopefully the adhesive will take fine when the water disappears. So, the next section is going to be one of the longer bits. I'm tempted to do the bottom first because I think it being one long piece will be slightly easier than doing a bit around this section. I will be wrong. This will be a pain in the ass, but you never know. Let's just check it for fit. Looks nice. So what I'm probably going to do is press that area in first and probably only partially remove the sticky backing, as that's the bit that needs to fit. He says rhyming. Yes, this is just as irritating as you would expect, trying to remove a very, very small bit of adhesive backing from a very small bit of, in this case, neoprene. There are different materials that can be used for repairing light seals on cameras. This eBay seller from whom I bought this set has used neoprene. I think that's a reasonable idea. So, that section. So I'm just going to sort of crimp it behind it for a minute and I'll extract that afterwards. Okay, and this is why I brought the toothpick from a Swiss Army knife. Oh yeah, that is quite irritating. It sort of sticks to the edge on the way down. Okay, that is better placed at the bottom now. It's actually, I believe, mostly stuck to the back, which is where it's supposed to go. This is extremely liable to twisting though, it's quite annoying. think it's been lightly stretched out, which means that it's not fitting in that corner perfectly anymore. So I'm going to reset it. Try again. Okay. I'm getting encouragement from the cat. Are you annoyed because I stole your normal seat? Okay, hopefully that one is now done. Seems okay. I think I could have done a nice job, but I think it will at least seal. Okay, next bit is this bit, which runs up to there, and I don't think my technique from last time worked, so this time I'm just going to make the whole thing damp and chuck it in. Looking much better than the previous one, though I still think it's sticking to the wrong point, but I don't think it especially matters, to be honest. Okay, well, it's certainly stuck to the wrong surface in a couple of places, but I don't think that will matter. So I'm going to leave it as is. It does seem a little bit short on that side to me. Oh no. No, it's okay. Right, one last bit on the back. Something I probably should have considered before I started doing this is the fact that I absolutely abhor working with adhesives. Just need to make sure that this small switch can still be pressed down. So I'm just making sure that that seal is certainly well pressed down behind it. My top seal is slightly twisted along this section here, and it's stuck to a different surface, but I don't believe that that will matter. However, that is, in theory, done. My only worry is that I can't really test it with the door. And so I tempted to test it with the door now before the adhesive's fully set, just to check that the door does indeed close. As you can see, the frame counter. As you can see, the frame counter has advanced. So now when we pop the door, and there you go, it's reset. It's back to, oh god, this is really like driving a canal boat here. So it's reset back to S. Okay. It seems to sit okay, but I don't want to leave it closed because of the risk of the door getting glued shut. So that is something to do in a little bit. So I'll release that back and leave it to dry. So I do actually now have some cotton buds, fully recyclable ones. Apparently, yes, they're made of paper, which is good. And for this task, I am going to use isopropyl alcohol rather than the Goo Gone, because in this instance, I need to clean some of this residue off of the mirror. I'm going to put the lid back on that. One of the reasons I don't like using isopropyl alcohol for stuff like this is that it smells. You really don't want to have that off-gassing at you a lot. I have also hopefully today fixed my issues with this constantly focusing on my head. As much as I'm sure everyone is liking the up-to-date status of my hairline, it's more useful as a video to actually be able to see what I'm doing. Okay. So the foam pads that I've got don't actually match up precisely to the pads used in this. I believe that this section here is used on the OM-10, but this is an OM-2N, and this has, I don't know if you can see it, a removable focus screen here, so you can pull back a little lever in here, flips up a little cage, and you can replace the focus screen, which is rather interesting. I don't have any replacement focus screens, but because of that mechanism, it means that you are only replacing the pads in the corner and not in a strip across the whole thing. When the mirror shoots up, it hits those pads and it doesn't hit the latch. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same as far as I can tell. I could, in theory, change that, but I'm going to try and get it as close as possible. So I'm going to remove one side at a time and hopefully not cock it up. We'll find out. One thing to note here, obviously, is that I don't want to get a lot of debris down inside the camera. So I'm going to just do one side first, and then I can compare my replacement to the original. This is coming off quite easily with the cotton buds. I've removed the bit at the front rather quickly. Rather curiously, when you look inside the mechanism, the bit further back seems partially redundant because it's actually slightly raised here at the front. So, where am I looking? Just in this bit, the front sort of section there is partially raised above the rear bit, only very slightly. But it should mean that as long as I've cleared any of the stuff that was going to leave residue on the lens, I should be okay. Not on the lens, sorry, on the mirror. I should be okay to just replace that bit. So let's try this out for size. I'm going to use plastic tip tweezers for this section because what I don't want to do is scratch the mirror, which is very possible. Okay, so it is a bit long. What I'm going to do is cut that in half. Probably needs a new blade, it's been a while. Put the lid back on that before I go slightly loopy. So put it in that way. The only problem with plastic tweezers is that they do tend to stick a bit. Okay. Try. Okay. Seems to be pretty happy. What had happened when I first received the camera is that if I fired the shutter upside down in particular, the mirror was getting stuck due to the adhesive and the gooiness of the previous bit, which is interesting. Thankfully, that's no longer the case. So let's just clean up the mirror again. Okay, let's try it with the lens. So this is the Olympus 51.4, which is one of the reasons why I bought this specific camera on eBay, was because this lens is A, fantastic, and B, the owner had put this filter on it in 1980 or something like that and has never removed it. So it's in absolutely perfect condition. It's a beautiful piece of glass. Really, really nice. So yes, rest assured that this isn't going to become a hipster film photography channel. For one, I only own one single flannel shirt, and that's clearly insufficient. But I do really like this camera, and I'm going to try and use it more often, particularly for the forms of photography that I don't particularly enjoy with a digital camera. Things like travel, photography, stuff like that. Yes, it's convenient, and it allows you to do video and all that sort of thing as well, but I've never found the taking of those photos to be especially rewarding, particularly in touristy places. But by using a film camera, it gives it an additional level of engagement and imperfection, which can make it quite nice. It means that you may not get the perfect photograph, but it's a nice memory, and in that regard, there's certainly something to be said for it, although I do realise that I'm starting to sound more and more like a hipster. But thank you very much for watching. I'll do some other videos on this in the future, and hopefully actually get videos out a little bit faster going forwards. Until next time.